Hello, everybody. Father Scott Vanderveer here with another installment in our series on everybody needing to forgive somebody. Today, we're talking about the idea of forgiveness allowing you to become the hero of a story or situation that happened in your life rather than a victim of it. Things that are hurtful, actions that harmed us, make us feel like victims. For good reason. We can be victimized by someone's selfishness, by their unkindness, by their brutality. All of that is possible. People do it to each other all the time. But staying someone's victim is so harmful for us in the long term. It's possible to be victimized by somebody but not remain a victim for a long time. In fact, we're learning now that people who have suffered from very serious traumas that affect the course of their whole life do not like to be referred to as victims. People do not like to be called victims of a certain kind of abuse or of a regime or of a trauma. They like to be called survivors. And forgiveness turns us from victims to survivors. In fact, I think it's fair to say that forgiveness turns us from victims into the heroes of our stories. One thing that is a common misconception is that forgiveness condones the behavior or it excuses behavior that has been harmful to us, or that it requires us to forget what happened. But forgiveness does not condone behavior, nor does it ask us to forget what happened. It doesn't put a stamp of approval or give a pass to someone. That's not what forgiveness does. Forgiveness is simply not agreeing to not carry the baggage of that earlier experience around with us anymore, to not carry the heavy baggage. We're saying it happened, it's over, and now we can do something creative with it. We can add a chapter to the story. That's how we go from being a victim to a hero, is we add a chapter to the story. And we can do with that chapter whatever we want. Maybe we wish to simply not allow what someone has done to diminish us. We don't pay it forward. Maybe a person has been abused, but they don't keep the cycle going. They don't become an abuser. They don't do to others what has been done to them. They don't repeat a vicious cycle. That turns you from a victim to a hero. Maybe you're able to actually have a moment with the person who victimized you and tell them, I want you to know that I'm not carrying this around anymore. What happened affected me, but it is not going to define me. In fact, maybe it's fair to say that we can take some creative responsibility for making sure that whatever has happened to us, rather than ruining our lives, actually adds a dimension to our life that we can use. A person who's been through a certain kind of trauma knows things about life that other people do not know. A person who's been through a certain kind of trauma could become an expert in something. Now, it might be an expert in something that they wish they had never been an expert in, like traumatic brain injuries or the kind of PTSD that can result from being in a war zone. All of those things are costly bits of wisdom and knowledge, but it's almost like the kind of wisdom and knowledge that parents who've been through raising children from painful childbirth all the way through to adulthood know things that people who haven't done that don't know. When we add a chapter to the story of something that happened to us, we open up the possibility that we can become the hero of the story, that we can do something with it that is exciting and creative and life-giving. And I can't imagine anything better than to take what could have been defeating and turned into triumph. Take what could have made us bitter and instead allow it to make me better. Martin Luther King said it well. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he always liked the Reverend to go first. His faith mattered more to him than his scholarship. He said, we must learn to not put our thermostat in someone else's room. We cannot put our thermostat in someone else's room. It's just so clear, plain and simple. Don't put your thermostat in anyone else's room. We should never allow our thermostat to be controlled by the conditions in someone else. We can feel what's going on, but we raise the temperature. The thermostat is ours. We do not allow our thermostat to be affected by others. We set the temperature. We can be a thermometer and know what's going on and be able to report this is a hot situation, this is freezing cold, or whatever. But we must never allow our life to be determined, our choices to be determined by other people. We must remain in charge of our life and our choices and how many chapters a story has. If we were to end some of our stories at the worst moment, we will have a horrible story on our hands. But if we add a creative chapter, we can turn what was a terrible, tragic experience into something that can help the world going forward. We can say, I will not be a victim. I will be a survivor. And I will not merely survive this. I will become the hero of my own story. How can you apply that to something in your life that has been painful? How can you apply that to someone who has hurt you or a situation that you need to forgive? Deep questions for all of us to consider. May God bless you on your forgiveness journey, and may God bless each one of us as we make our way toward becoming the heroes of our stories.